Welcome to today's episode brought to you by Total Processing. We are joined by the highly successful entrepreneur Tom Jeffrey, who is the co-founder and managing director of Wave Direct. The business, which was set up in 2019, has already hit sales of 50 million in 2021. Wave sells a range of inflatable hot tubs direct to consumer via its e-commerce website, along with being listed in major retailers such as John Lewis, Selfridges and Homebase. They have their sights firmly set on further internationalisation with their recent multi-million pound investment to boost their growth. Welcome, Tom.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Sounds very exciting when you hear it like that.
Yeah, well, it's impressive in just 2 years. I mean, it would be great for you to talk us through the journey. So how you got to where you are today, starting off from, I know you went to school in Newcastle, and let's hear a bit of the background on yourself.
Yeah, very much so. So my first job was at a local sailing business. They were very keen in getting to online. So literally from the age of 16, I was picking and packing parcels, right at when sort of e-commerce was at its infancy. Really loved it. And I just felt like it was just my passion. But I always wanted to work somewhere that was sort of really scalable. So I had an opportunity to work for a business called Julesby, which I started out when I was about 19. And I worked for them for 12 years.
Wow.
And we took that business from doing about 200,000 annually to at its peak about 13 million. So I was very, very fortunate though in the fact that I had the owner of the business sort of facilitated me to learn on the go. He wasn't hands-on. He didn't micromanage it. He let me make mistakes, but he also gave me the autonomy to sort of push the e-commerce side of that business forwards. And then one thing that's really supported me doing that was it was in the fashion sector.
Oh, nice.
I would still say the fashion sector is the most competitive industry out there. So it was a big decision when we set up Wave to make sure that rule number one was we don't touch fashion. There's plenty of fashionistas out there.
Fair enough. Brilliant. So when did you decide to make the step away from Julesby to set up Wave? So
my current business partner, who's Daniel, he has another business which sources product from China. And he actually came knocking on the door when I was at Julesby and tried to sell us packaging. In our first sort of packaging order saving that we did for him, we saved about 40%. It was fun when we made that saving, but then when a massive 40-foot container turned up and we realized we had to hand unload it, it was a bit of a different story. But ultimately, what I saw from that was the fact that sourcing direct from China enabled us to make significant savings. And then over the sort of duration of 2 to 3 years, checking samples, ended up sort of meeting in the pub and having a few extra beers. And one thing sort of led to another, and it enabled us to sort of make a friendship. We then started going on sort of skiing holidays and stuff like that together. And we just suddenly thought, he was a specialist in sourcing from China. I really, really love e-commerce. And it was sort of a perfect sort of harmony.
Nice. And why inflatable hot tubs then? Where did the idea for that come from?
Oh, that's a good question. So working for a fashion retailer for 13 years, when you're actually selling other people's brands, was kind of exhausting because you were very much beholden to the brand guidelines of, say, 130 other brands. And obviously one brand would then conflict with another, and it was very, very hard to sort of manage. And then one thing Dan always said was, it's really important from a valuation point of view is to grow your own brand. So what we decided to do was create our own brand, because then we could be in control of the brand guidelines. We could choose which distributors we distribute it with. Basically, we could be in control. And then in regards to the category of hot tubs, we spent sort of 6 to 9 months deliberating over where we should go from a product type, because we wanted to go for something that was niche. We wanted to go to something which there was a relatively high and challenging entry point for competitors. And we also wanted to do something in the marketplace which wasn't saturated. and that would enable us to start having a point of difference and gain serious market share. And like I say, it took sort of 6 to 9 months, and we eventually honed in, through keyword research and, just general interest and, looking around retail, stores, that we felt hot tubs could be a really, really good option. And it proved to be so.
Nice. And you mentioned there about the barriers to entry around hot tubs and the sort of industry there. How did you go about, one, sourcing the product, and secondly, the next challenge I can imagine was bringing these products into the country and then warehousing them. So what operational setup costs did you need for that as well?
Yeah. So firstly, initially, sort of sourcing the product from China. That was my business partner's responsibility. I think his business was already purchasing inflatable products, I think, for the range from the factory that we use for the hot tubs. So like all things in life, it is helpful when you already have, a little bit of a starting block to work on. And he already had that existing relationship. We knew that we could tap into it. And that was obviously something as well that we took into consideration before we went down the hot tub route, because you want to make your life as easy as possible. And then, sorry, the second question was.
And then the warehousing aspect. Obviously, there's.
So we didn't have warehousing. So Dan had a very, very small office in South Shields in Newcastle, and a 20-foot container would turn up, and on our lunch breaks we would hand unload them and basically stick them in any nook and cranny you could find.
Wow.
So trust me, a 30-kilo hot tub and unloading a 20-foot one of them manually it's a complete another nightmare. So we're always like, we want to order more hot tubs, but we don't want to unload them.
Wow. I can imagine that was a logistical nightmare and a warehousing nightmare as well. So I can imagine, obviously, that there's a number of challenges there. How then have you, scaled the business? How have you utilized marketing and sort of going into, how did you win your first customer then?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we did is we've always been, as a business, profitable, and we made sure from day one we didn't want to be one of these businesses that was loss making from day one, and that we keep reinvesting and use funding to grow it. That really wasn't our ethos. We wanted to be profitable from day one, so therefore we kept everything lean and mean. Hence, doing the logistics ourselves.
Yep.
However, it got to that point where we were running out of space, and we also wanted to focus on what we were good at. So outsourcing the logistics side of it was something that we looked at very early on. One of my best friends had a business, and he was doing about $500,000 a year, and he again had exactly the same issue. He needed to be able to scale up and scale down based on seasonality, and he was like, Tom, why don't you look at FreePls? Yeah. So from sort of not day one, but sort of day 30, after we'd done the first couple of sample containers, me and Dan took the decision to offload that responsibility, especially being a very seasonal business, to a company that can cater with sort of high peaks, because we just didn't want that responsibility, and then we could focus on what we were good at, which was sourcing the product innovation and e-commerce. And then you mentioned, how do we do our first customer? I'm a big believer in digital paid advertising. Mm-hmm. Always have been. I think maybe I'm just a little bit too old to totally fall in love with the whole social media sort of storm that's happened at the moment. I never really, because I never had an affinity to it, or in all honesty, I'm not massively interested in it. I've always focused on areas which I believe in, and I think, like we've seen recently with the latest updates on iOS and privacy, it's taken away a lot of the trackability. Mm-hmm. And the ability to segment consumers on social media. And the problem is, privacy is only going to become more and more of an issue, whereas Google is going to be very, very happy taking our money for people searching inflatable hot tubs. Yeah. So from a safety point of view, again, we tried to sort of funnel ourselves into a position where paid channels, multi-channels, and you mentioned retail, mm-hmm. Those are all channels that will be in control of and will always be there in the future. So therefore, they're sort of, traffic sources which we can scale up. So yeah, ultimately just digital paid advertising, Google paid ads, advertising on Bing. And, for the first year and a half, we didn't sell anything on Amazon apart from filters.
Oh, really?
Just because we never had the stock, which, obviously helped and supported the bottom line and the growth that we did.
Definitely. And when was it then that you decided to go full time? Was it straight away? Did you leave straight away from the business you were working with, or was it a sort of a slow progression into it?
It was a really slow progression. I had a lot of respect for my boss. Julian, almost was like my father. And we basically phased it out over about a year period where I made sure the handover was right, because I felt ethically that was the right thing to do. And we got to a point where it got to the November. We almost got everything prepped for Jules B, because in fashion, Christmas tends to be your peak. And then it enabled me over the next 2 months to sort of phase that final bit over and be ready for a spring-summer season, which was last year.
Brilliant. So what sort of revenues were you doing when you decided to go full time, if you don't mind me asking?
Not very much.
No. Okay.
I think probably maybe about 100,000.
Okay.
We probably made about 30, maybe made 30,000 potentially. So I was very lucky and fortunate in the fact that my business partner said, Tom, I've got a family and I've got kids, I've got a mortgage. And he said, Tom, I really believe in this, but it's not going to keep working if we're doing Saturdays and Sundays and Wednesday nights, and especially if on Wednesday nights we end up going out, out some beers afterwards and then spend all of our profits on beer. We need to be doing this sort of 9 to 5. And he said, I won't take a salary, but that'll enable you to move across, and get your hands dirty and do what you were, what you're good at. So he, my business partner, he facilitated me quite early on the ability to financially move across. But again, it was a big risk, to take a pay cut. And I had to convince my partner to do it, which, that was intense. But she obviously really enjoys it now. I don't think she enjoys the fact that my garden's full of about 7 samples of hot tubs.
Well, it's got its pros and cons, eh?
There's pros and cons, yeah. But so it was early on, and at least we were making profit, but it was still a high risk exercise. But I wanted to be in charge of my destiny, and I wanted to put all the effort into something which would ultimately become mine and Dan's. And, I know a lot of people try and do it and it doesn't work, but, we've been incredibly fortunate and timing's really supported us. But we do genuinely believe that we'd have got to where we're at now just over a longer period if it wasn't for COVID. We've always made money. We've always been profitable. We just managed to, get a bit of a catalyst, involved to scale the business quickly.
So let's talk about COVID, because you obviously set up in 2019, right before the pandemic. How did that impact your business then?
Massively, in multiple areas. So the first thing that was pretty stressful was the fact that I left my job at Jules B, and then our supplier dropped us. They had an exclusivity agreement, or they formed an exclusivity agreement about a week after I left my job with a competitor who just does B2B in the UK. So me and Dan, had gone from being on this massive high of making that step and, we're going to be working together, I was going to be working in this office, to actually not having any products to sell.
Wow.
So we jumped on an aeroplane and went to China and spent a week in China finding a new supplier. We already knew of another one. And again, Dan had already worked with this other supplier as well.
And what very quickly, what month was that in 2019 then?
It was November.
Oh, wow.
In 2010, I think.
In 2000 and when, sorry?
2000, yeah, it was two and a bit years ago now.
Okay, yeah.
So it was and it was November, and we'd spoken to them, we'd showed them what we wanted, and we went over and we met them, and I'm a big believer in fate, and to be honest, the products that they had were so much better than what we were already buying. We were almost blessed because it gave us an opportunity to work with a business that wanted to work with us rather and develop a brand. But it was a pretty stressful time when, you make that step and your supplier falls through. But we managed to find a new supplier, and we've been working with them ever since.
Brilliant, amazing. And the quantities, what sort of quantities were you having to buy, in the early days with Wave?
I think the first container we did, it was probably 50 to 100 hot tubs. We in all honesty, couldn't even afford to fill a 20-foot container. But then, as we kept growing and got better payment terms and, all those sort of things, we were able to sort of fill up. But, I think today, I'm sure there's about 100,000 people out there with Wave hot tubs now.
Wow.
And it just scaled, incredibly quickly. And what we did, which was essential, was as those numbers increased, we just made sure that we were working with partners who enabled us to keep scaling. Rather than have blocks. And then we could focus on what we were good at. Mm-hmm. We gave a lot of preemptive. We did a lot of sort of preemptive workings with our supplier to enable them to see the opportunities. And we basically locked them down. So as soon as COVID was kicking in, there was an inkling of COVID. We'd gone to China. We found a new supplier. We said we think it's going to be massive due to COVID. Will you back us? And we basically locked down the whole production schedule for the following year.
Wow.
Which, could we have financially afforded that if people weren't pre-ordering? Absolutely not. But we really believed in it. And, we delivered to that supplier, and that's obviously really built the relationship over time as well.
Amazing. And I did read that you were doing circa, £300,000 per year before COVID. And then COVID hit, and you did a £3 to £4 million month. So how did that affect supply chain, warehousing, logistics, operations for the whole business? Obviously, going from doing that amount of money to such a significant jump. How was that for the business?
What we did is we put systems in that were scalable. The biggest challenging was getting really good staff on board. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, in all honesty, we're literally at the point now where, from a pivotal point of view, we've got people on board that we, really, really believe can take the business to that next point. It was really, really challenging. It was incredibly challenging, actually, because as much as we wanted our staff to become professionals and ambassadors of the brand, we were still learning how to do it ourselves. Yeah. And, you can't always expect someone to do something that you can't do. That's one of my big philosophies. So, we didn't have proper formal training and all that sort of stuff. It was literally better seat your pants. But all of our tools that we put in were web-based. So it meant that as we needed to take on more customer services, we just added more people in. We sort of segmented them into different groups of warranty, general customer services, delays, refunds, all that sort of stuff. And we just tried to sort of silo people into areas so very quickly they could become specialists. Mm-hmm. And it was literally just do whatever it takes to keep the momentum going. But one thing that I wanted to do from day one was just not let the customers down as well. So over the last couple of years, we've developed our pre-order sort of strategy to add significant buffers in to avoid disappointment.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie, there's still been, sadly, you still get containers that are supposed to land in the UK and they disappear off to Rotterdam and then come back again. You just think, why? You've just broken the hearts of 400 people. And we've then put tools in place to be able to sort of segment and notify those customers of the delay and recompense them and, give them sort of visibility of where their tub is. So, but yeah, we just used a variety of online tools which were very scalable. But that is why we sort of decided, I sort of made that move in November, because it meant that I had all the way to March, April mm-hmm. to get everything dialed in so that we could scale. Yeah.
And what were the supply chain issues with the business? Obviously, you're procuring from China. That's obviously where the pandemic arose initially.
Yeah. So no, honestly, not this year, but the year before, no supply chain issues. Container prices were great. Mm-hmm. Like I said, we'd sort of semi-promised to our supplier we could do certain volumes, which we believed in. We were selling goods on a 3-month pre-order period, which is pretty unheard of. And the real challenge from a supply chain perspective has been this year. Material costs have gone up just astronomically. Container costs have gone up sort of through the roof, to a point where, from a sustainability point of view, large goods start to become non-profitable. And that's all combined at the same time when we've tried to sort of nail America, which is challenging because it's just so big. It's not like the UK when you can offer a next day parcel for a £5.
Yeah.
With America, we decided to, I think it was May. So we saw this pickup in March, during COVID, and we thought, well, let's go for America straight away. So we quickly spun up a website, quickly got all the products sorted. The products in America are very different to the UK from a technical point of view. Even from a packaging point of view, they're very different. But we made that leap straight away just because we believe the opportunity in America is so massive. But this has been the year from logistics, and I'm sure you've heard that from everyone, where container prices, it's just out of control.
Yeah, we have heard that. And in terms of internationalization, then let's talk about America. In terms of going to America, why was that next on the agenda then? Why not European countries or the Far East?
The first thing was language. Language is always a key challenge. When I was at Jules B, we sold to Germany and France, and there are a lot of challenges with language, and the way that, for example, Germans transact in comparison to the UK, whereas the UK and Americans they're actually relatively similar. They're still different. They're very, very different when it comes to customer services, for example. But the route to entry into America was a lot easier. So it was the next logical step. And as a caveat to that, Canada's next door.
Yep.
And there's a massive opportunity in Canada as well to do our products. So it was kind of a two-in-one winner. However, we have had some sort of, hands up, we've had some incredible challenges with our FreePls in America. The first 3 that we've used, in all honesty, have been horrific.
And if you don't mind me asking, in what respect? It's potentially a classic American trait, but they promise you the world and deliver absolutely none of it. So and that's fine when you're in a stock position because you can kind of sell an item and then not ship it. But when you sell stuff on a pre-order basis, and then you actually eventually get the goods to them just in time, and then all you need them to do is ship those goods to the customer, and they don't do that. It starts causing a lot of commotion, and we don't. Our products are not easy to ship. They are on the edge of basically all the thresholds from away to the DIMS perspective for every courier network in America. So I can understand why it's been challenging, but at the same time, we've now found one who's brilliant, and you could send them 500 orders, and they would have them out the same day. And it's just been incredibly painful and expensive, just because you then want to move from one 3PL to another 3PL. And for example, they'll try and charge you a pick rate that you'd pay for all your normal parcels just to move them out of them, even on the basis that they were the one who can't deliver what they proposed. So yeah, it's and emotionally as well. When you launch in a country, you want to offer a really, really good service. I'm a big believer in you only get one chance to make a good impression. And we let down some customers due to these 3PLs. Not us. We always made sure the buffers were there, but the 3PLs just didn't ship the goods, and it's been turbulent. Yeah. And did you have anyone on the ground in America from a Wave point of view?
We wanted. I mean, if I could have jumped on an airplane and got to America, I would have been there.
Yeah.
But you couldn't even get in the country.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, with everything going on. So let's go back to the wholesale side of things. So you've launched in 2019 direct to consumer via e-commerce website. When do you decide that wholesale could be a good option, and then also third party marketplaces as well?
Yeah. So literally straight away. what we wanted to do was position ourselves straight away in a position where our B2B customers would do free advertising for us. So, you mentioned Selfridges, we wanted to take on America. It doesn't work any better than being able to go and tell Costco in America, who we're trying to get into bed with at the moment, that we work with Selfridges. So the idea was literally use the B2B customers in the UK to strengthen our brand, get the brand in front of our consumers, help generate sales for us, really help the sales for the B2B customers as well. It's not just a marketing exercise, but at the same time, I'm not going to lie, a lot of people will go into the range, but they won't want to walk out with a hot tub. A lot of people do, because obviously, it's one of their, I think it's their biggest outdoor and leisure product, hot tubs, out of the range. But at the same time, not everyone wants to leave the showroom, or put one in their car. And that's where, they can either buy it online or buy it direct from us. So we started off very early on wanting to just get the product in front of people. And it's still something that we're, looking to do today. We want to be going to exhibitions. We want to be looking at maybe concessions, potentially in garden centres, especially some of the big chains, just as, avenues to present, educate, and show off our product.
I suppose the following question from that, a lot of companies that you speak to, brands, want to get in front of these retailers. How did you go about that then, in terms of making connections and getting your products actually in store?
I think it was a mix. I think, first of all, we just hassled to hell every single person that we knew to find a way. Whether that was LinkedIn, whether it was a friend of a friend who might know another friend who used to work 10 years ago at a certain retailer, and perseverance. And then, you put all this effort in, and then, for example, the relationship with Selfridges actually matured from then coming to us.
Oh, wow.
And which is, humbling. And, it was a really proud moment the first day that we actually put our products on the web, our products were put on the Selfridges website. We felt like, wow, this is really cool. So it was literally a combination of existing relationships and perseverance, and it still is. We're still working very, very hard to secure some additional sort of retailers at the moment, and I think we will keep continuing to do that. And, something that we're really trying to do is that in America at the moment, we want to be getting into the Targets, we want to be getting into the Costcos, just because in America, although e-commerce is about double the size of the UK, but they have 5 times the population. So obviously you've got another sort of 3/5 of the population going to sort of retail stores and buying in that way. So, from a growth opportunity, that's really where the massive opportunity is.
Yeah, 100%. And do you have plans then to have an on-the-ground presence in America then, an office over there as well, or?
Not at the moment, but I think as we probably secure, B2B customers over there, and, it becomes more, a mix of a hybrid of e-com and retail operation, there will be a requirement, I would have thought, to take someone on the ground and make sure that the brand's represented correctly. You want to make sure that inflatable hot tubs, the one thing that everyone in the shop will do is let it go flat over 3 months and no one will blow it up. Yeah. There's nothing worse than a deflated hot tub. So I think we've always tried to be very proactive and give all of our retailers a bit of help and advice on how to show our product.
Yeah.
It doesn't always materialize. It's still a bit heartbreaking when I go into some of the shops around Newcastle and you go in and they've gone soggy. But what can you do?
There we go. And from an internationalization perspective, what's next on the agenda?
So our big plan for next year is Europe. We've redeveloped the product significantly. There's a lot of product innovation that should have come through this year, but basically with COVID and all the challenges and supply chain issues, it to some degree was shelved. But we've got a new product going live for Europe next year, and we've also got our paddle boards. So we do wavesups.com, which is our paddleboard range. It's been incredibly successful. in the UK. I think we've turned over a couple of million on that this year with very, very limited stock, which is great. And the idea is that we can drop that into Europe and make that work in America as well.
Brilliant, amazing. And I did read an article and see that you'd recently raised a little bit of money. What is the intention behind that, and what will that sort of fund be used for as such?
Yeah, so we weren't actually looking for any sort of funding or investment, but we have a vision of where we want to go, and basically we met this sort of this company through some friends, and they had a very, very different perspective on the way to grow brands. They were all about sort of developing value, expanding into international marketplaces. The company called Growth Partner is financially backed by Richard Harpin, who's grown HomeServe, which is an incredibly sort of massive and amazing organization. So he's got a lot of experience, and we just felt like, why would we not want to work with them? It also enabled us to some degree to take the brakes off. We've always been very conservative, especially from the early days. We've always tried to make sure that the business, we penny pinch, to make sure that, we get the maximum ROI. And to some degree, to do the international scale, sometimes you just need to go for it. And basically they have facilitated us doing that. And brought a sort of a wealth of experience and relationships that we wouldn't have been able to touch. So, for example, another company that they work with is Crafter's Companion.
Okay.
And that's they've got Sarah Davies, who's currently on Strictly Come Dancing, and Sarah was very kind to sort of introduce us to the shopping channels.
Oh, amazing.
And we really sort of see now the shopping channels has been a seriously massive part of our business for next year.
Oh wow!
Based on that relationship and introduction, so it really shows you how diverse that relationship with Growth Partners is, because it's linking so many dots up together.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, so there's the power of the network there.
Exactly.
Brilliant. And I suppose the final sort of couple of questions, I know we've spoke about some of the challenges that the business has faced. I suppose we want to know what the biggest challenge you have faced from a business perspective, and then as well, if there's been any significant moments in the company's journey, which has really shaped the future and where you are today, really.
I think, in regards to shaping the business, from day one, we wanted to be a lean, mean business. And we've always made sure we do that, because that's what enables a business to grow and scale. So from day one, that was our decision. I'm sorry, the second question, the first part was?
The challenges, really, if there was, what the major challenge you've seen over the year or faced over the year, really? Yeah.
Logistics. So what's ironic is the fact that we were already doing a lot of work to basically counteract the logistic challenges anyway, not ultimately because of the logistics reasons that come through, but more of the opportunity through making modifications, getting more products on containers, supporting that bottom line. So, logistics has by far been, it's 3 times more expensive than it was, a year ago. So what we're trying to do is make our products smaller, packaging more compact, getting them more in a container, increasing the reliability so we don't need to buy so many spares. All these little bits will really help on the bottom line. And, and the nice thing about it is the more the work that we do on it, when it comes to launch in a new territory, the more viable a new territory becomes. Yeah, I think, running lean and mean, and being proactive so that regardless of what's going on in the market, you can increase your bottom line and, build a bit of a buffer.
Amazing. Brilliant. And then the final question, where do you see the business in 3 years' time then? Where do you want the business to be?
I'll tell you where I'd like to be in 5 years.
Yeah, go on, then 5 years.
So, the dream is very much to make Wave a household name. I think eco products and sustainability is a really big problem nowadays. And I know that's semi-ironic considering that we're selling inflatable hot tubs, but We also do a range of foam hot tubs,
nice.
which are about 50 to 60% more thermally efficient. And I believe, and my passion is very much growing that side of the business, because it's very much a sort of, it's a really nice in-between product between your inflatable hot tub and a rigid hot tub, and you can pack it away when you want to. So my vision is, and it's similar to when we founded the actual brand, is we need to find a gap. We need to find an opportunity, and we need to grow it. And what I want to do is become sort of industry leaders for, foam spas, obviously develop the SUP brand as well, and become a household name. And, it'd be lovely to sort of be turning over sort of, 100 million and also be in sort of 20 different countries. That's certainly the ambition. There's nothing more proud than when you see the Wave name on something that someone comes to you about and they go, oh, I've got one of your products where I love that. So that's my aspiration, and, sustainability is something that we are pushing through, and that will come. We want to, for example, we want people to be able to buy one of our inflatable hot tubs, which is an entry level product, and then upgrade to a foam hot tub by just buying the liner rather than the heater. And therefore it's almost like you can what's the word? You can almost like upscale your product, or I don't know what the term is.
Upsell
you can,
to a degree,
yeah. But it's that point of the fact that you can invest in a cheap hot tub, but that heater will enable to be fitted into one of our foam spas, so that your journey of having a hot tub becomes more sustainable. And your heating bills will come down if you invest in the foam spas.
Nice, brilliant, amazing. Well, Tom, I'm sure you will hit your 5-year plan from speaking to you and knowing what your business is doing, and you've achieved so much in 2 years. And just want to say thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Tom.